Welcome, folks, back to the Craig Bushon Show. Be First in Media, BeFirstInMedia.com. Very exciting show today because we're focusing in on the power of the judge, the power of, what your vote can do in picking that person who ultimately you could be in front of one day, or your case could be there and you may not physically be there. You could be in a divorce case. You could be, God forbid, something worse than that. But the bottom line is, or you could have a traffic violation. Judges do a whole lot of stuff that affects your life, and they set precedents. It isn't until you get to the Supreme Court of the United States that they don't have to take precedence on anything. They can kind of think of what their opinion matters. But, all other places within the land, you have to look at a lot of things like precedents, but yet opinions do matter in the mindset of that particular person that is sitting behind the bench, is a very, very important part of what makes up the great place we call the United States of America. And today, we're out at a great ice cream social up in Williamson County. And what's so exciting about it is that it's designed, for what we're doing here today, to have some people on the show, candidates that are running for office. Some are already seated as judges in the past, and others, like the person to my right, Mr. Scott Field, who is an attorney running for the third court. And tell the folks a little bit about yourself, and welcome back to the show again.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. I'm running for place 3 on the court. It's the seat currently held by Democratic incumbent Diane Henson, and started the campaign beginning of August of last year. So it's been quite a ride going through the campaign trail. Native Texan. Been in Texas all my life. Been in Austin for 20 years and been practicing here in Austin my entire career.
Well, the last time I saw you and you were on the show, you were running against somebody else to get where you're at now. Obviously, you've won that.
Right.
Okay. Here we are today. I call this the Liberty Room. This is a beautiful
nice
place that we're at. We're in a private residence here. It's always fun to get out to these socials. But I'm going to talk a little bit later about what that painting is behind me and how it even plays into the rule of law in this nation of laws. Capitalism, the laws of capitalism. You hear the law a lot, Scott, when you talk about the United States of America. It's really a nation of laws.
Absolutely. I mean, from the very beginning of the nation, it's a country of laws, and we respect, as Americans, we respect the rule of law, and it's important. People know it's important. We just hope it's important enough for them to find out more about the judicial races.
Well, the judges, you poll a lot of people out there, and I've spoken to a lot of people over the years, and it's been a big concern of mine that when I ask them who you're voting for judge in their area, they have no concept, they have no idea. I've even had this conversation with the Attorney General Greg Abbott, who's been on my show in the past, and just recently, about a week and a half ago, and we talked about that to the point where we're going to start building out an ongoing series teaching people through programming. It's funny to say it that way, programming you to know what you need to do. It's really letting people know why judges are important, and that's why I'm glad you could sit down with us today at this event. And we have a few questions from some viewers of the show, and I'm going to pick 2 of them out here. And the first one is from Rhonda. She's an undecided voter. As a matter of fact, everyone here today that we'll talk about that are asking a question are all undecided. And her question is, how do you define the term judicial activism? Is it ever proper for an appellate judge to consider his or her personal preference as to the outcome of a case, other than the preference to decide the case correctly in accordance with the law in deciding how to rule? And then the second part of the question is, what do you believe is the best practice for someone to find out before they vote for them if they are an activist judge or they would be an activist judge? How does an average person even figure that out?
Right. That's great questions, Rhonda. First of all, let me define judicial activism for you. Judicial activism in its purest form is when a judge, in looking at a case, decides the result he or she wants to reach and then twists the law to get there. And if you think about it, all of us, I'm in private practice, those on the bench, we're good lawyers. And a good lawyer can, unfortunately, twist the law. People in the public like to call it twisting the law. We call it advocacy. You don't want a judge who's going to be an advocate for a particular side. You want a judge who's going to just apply the law and the Constitution faithfully and strictly. And no, I don't think it's ever proper for a person's personal opinions to come into a case they're deciding. Let me answer your last question. How would you find out? It's hard to find out. Just like it's hard to find out with any race out there unless you are able to get personal contact with the candidate, look them in the eye, and talk to them. And unfortunately, most people don't get to do that. But you can research. I know for example, in my race, you can find a YouTube video of my opponent giving a speech to the Democratic convention where, in my view, she kind of shows her true colors and shows her political bent to a point that you start questioning whether she is going to let personal opinion come into play when she's deciding cases. Likewise, you can find out things about me and my background. I invite you to do that. It's important to do that because these judicial races have more of an impact on individuals' daily lives than they ever know. And thank Craig for introducing us and talking about that today.
Well, it's so important, I believe, too. I mean, I've been spending, I'd say the last 2 years solid on air pushing, people need to pay attention, especially at when it's high-profile other races going on. We mentioned here in Texas, Ted Cruz and the lieutenant governor and the millions of dollars spent. It kind of flooded the airways, right? And there's nothing else going on. And then now you have the presidential, race, which is even bigger money. They say $1 billion is going to be spent between the two. I mean, that's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
I don't know if our founders intended it to be
I'm not sure. No.
I don't think so. But a lot of things get lost because of that noise. And the power of judges really affect people more than a lot of other races that they may think is more important to them, whether it's the county commissioner or whatever. But local sheriff, I guess, is also a big deal in your community. But judges, they set precedents, and they go by precedents. And they, I think it's just the Supreme Court that doesn't have to go by precedents. They can kind of make what they want out of it.
Yeah, unless they have a case on point, they should follow it. Yeah,
right. But below that, there's precedents out there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for a lot of the consumers of media, we want to spend time, just like today, educating people so when they go to a ballot, they just don't pick party line. And because the effect of a judge, once they're in there and they start, ruling, their ruling can stay around for quite some time.
Oh, absolutely. The example I give to people all the time is people put a lot of emphasis on state representative races, the state senate races.
Sure.
Well, and they should. Those races are important, but keep in mind the legislature can pass a law, and if someone challenges it in court, a panel of 3 judges are going to be deciding the validity of that law. And if 2 out of the 3 vote against it, it's gone.
Right.
And people don't think about it in those terms. The state legislator they elect is 1 out of many who are voting whether to pass that law, whereas, once again, 2 out of 3 judges can take it off the books.
Well, I did watch that video of the Democrat incumbent Dianne Henson, and she's it's almost like she's standing at a pulpit, being a preacher, really trying to rally her troops through rabble rousing. Not really talking about facts and talking about what she would do different to be better. It's just about getting people upset and getting people just to vote her way because of fear. And that's not great leadership. Sitting down, talking about the issues, educating like we're doing today, that's the key to leadership.
Oh, absolutely. Being angry from a pulpit and basically kind of pounding the pulpit to get there. Right. Not only did it get her removed from a case that she was supposed to hear here in 2012, but it also, like you said, it's just someone who's going to put on a robe. That's unbecoming.
Right.
True. You shouldn't be out there pounding the podium and saying negative things about people just to get people scared, angry, and pandering to the voters to get their vote. Not in a judicial race. That's not what it's about. And that's, I think, personally, for someone who's now in the Third Court of Appeals to do that, it's just wrong.
Yeah, and I did promise you that everyone would be undecided that the questions came from. Well, this one for sure is because she's 15.
Oh, very good. All right.
I wanted to get something out there.
I've got 16, 14, 11-year-olds in my house, so I understand.
Her name's Donna. She's 15 years old. And this is an interesting question, so I filtered through. I said, this is a good one to ask. And you're going to have to kind of imagine this. But it says, everybody has a bad day at the office.
Sure.
But not everybody's decisions affect so many people. Mm-hmm. Once you recognize you're having a bad day, what can you do about it so it doesn't affect your decisions?
Meaning in a judicial position.
In a judicial position.
Donna, It's Donna, right?
Yes, Donna.
Donna, that's a great question and very perceptive on your part, because you're right. You don't want someone making law just because they had a bad day. In fact, there's a saying within the law that bad facts make bad law sometimes, and that's a different meaning, but it's kind of the same kind of deal where someone gets so caught up in this really horrible situation that they're writing about as a judge, and they end up making a decision based on their personal feelings about it that ends up being the law of the district. And but for those bad facts, wouldn't be the law of the district because they were letting their personal bias get in. Thankfully, as an appellate judge, it's a little different. On the trial end, you're right. There, it's really dangerous because that's where the judges have juries nearby. They have witnesses, and if they're having a bad day, things can go downhill in a hurry. Appellate judges, the nice thing is it takes months to get decisions out. So if you're having a bad day one day in looking at a particular case, you're going to have a good day the next day. You may have a bad day later on, but in other words, it's not going to necessarily affect the ultimate decision. And you have to have the agreement of at least one other person on your panel for that decision to come out and be the law. So there are some checks and balances for keeping that bad day from becoming law and on an appellate court, and that's how it's different. But excellent question, and unfortunately, I think there are times in our legal system where those bad days do hurt litigants. But
I thought it was interesting, and it's great the education you gave her about it's different than if you just showed up to court one day and the judge is going to throw the gavel down. If they had a bad day, that could affect that person that day.
Mm-hmm.
This within the Court of Appeals, it's just spread out, and a lot of people don't even get
time
to argue in front of you.
No, that's right. Not every case is argued. So the court. It's such an unusual. People who aren't accustomed to the court system, it's hard to even picture, because we all see on TV the jury trial, or the trial court and the witnesses, and we're used to seeing Judge Judy or Judge Wapner. Sure. It's totally different. The court gets boxes of materials and written materials on which they're going to decide the case. The lawyers come in if they're allowed to, and they have 20 minutes per side to argue. There are no witnesses. Often the clients aren't even in the room. They're arguing their case, and then it takes months to get the decision out. It is. I want to say it's a sterile environment, because that sounds like you're saying it's unimportant. What I mean by that is there are no real outside influences to change that environment. In other words, there's no witness. If you have a witness come in who's had a bad day,
sure,
you may have to get the bailiff to take the witness out of the courtroom, or some unruly person in the gallery. The appellate court, it's more of because it is law focused. You don't have those interpersonal views come into play in the courtroom.
And there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of briefing, there's a lot of it really, the earnest is on the person, or the attorney, the law firm, to put in writing the argument in such a way that it's not a run-on sentence, that it just makes obviously the judge fall asleep. And the other side, it has to be on point to say, here's why, why you need to look at this. This is why you should overrule it, or whatever. You have
50 pages to make your argument.
Sure.
And the truth is, what you say at oral argument usually isn't going to make a difference in the world. Lawyers,
the theater.
It's the theater. We enjoy it as practicing lawyers. We enjoy going in to make oral argument in appellate courts, but the truth is, it rarely matters. What matters is those 50 pages or less that you submit to the court, and that's where you better convince them.
Well, I have one more for you, and it's my question.
Right.
And it's the shortest one on here. Can you believe that? And my viewers are like, no way. Why should the folks vote for you?
To me it's simple, because what I conveyed to Rhonda earlier, I truly don't believe that judges should decide the cases based on a personal whim. Someone may say, well, we're here at an ice cream social. They asked us our favorite kind of ice cream coming in.
Sure.
Well, someone may disagree with my flavor of ice cream. I know this is a silly example. And you may disagree with some personal opinion I have. But with me, you don't have to worry about that, because my view is, if the law is out there and the legislature's written a good solid statute that's not open for multiple interpretations, it says what it says, that's going to be applied. And the same thing with the Constitution. That's going to be applied whether I agree personally with it or not. And that's why people ought to vote for me. I do invite people to go look at that speech of my opponent, because it shows a level of partisanship that I think's unbecoming of a justice on the Court of Appeals.
It felt radical.
And
to me,
I'm not that way. I just don't believe that we as judicial candidates, that's what we should be out there doing and saying to people just to get votes. I don't believe in that. And so I want people to understand my view. I kind of have a purist view of what an appellate court should be and what an appellate judge should be. I believe in it. I love the Third Court of Appeals. My mentor when I got to law school was a gentleman who had been Chief Justice of the Third Court of Appeals for 25 years. He loved the court. He exuded that love. And it wore off on me. And he's been encouraging me to do this for years now. And I'm going to follow in those footsteps and those big shoes of his. And we're going to be that kind of judge on the Third Court of Appeals that people can trust to do the right thing, meaning, when I say do the right thing, I don't mean what they may think's right. I mean what the law says is going to be applied, whether I like the result or not.
Scott Field, he's running, and he hopes you catch him right there at the ballot box. Tell the folks how they can contribute to what you're doing. How do they find more out about yourself?
Absolutely. Many ways. Visit my Facebook page, Scott Field for Judge. You can visit my website. It's my full name, Scott King Field. That middle name's K-I-N-G. It's my mom's maiden name, scottkingfield.com. And also, you can search just about anywhere. You'll find things on the internet about us. But yes, please, if you want to financially contribute, you can online at my website and find out more information. And early voting starts tomorrow, so please get out and vote.
Well, there you have it, folks. Pay attention. At this time, you're the judge and you're the jury on who you pull the lever for, or punch the ticket, or in my district, you touch a screen. No matter how you do it, you got to pay attention. Scott Field, thank you so much for coming on again. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
And know this. This snippet, this video will be up on Be First in Media. It'll be up on Facebook. It'll be out there on YouTube. Share it with all your friends and your family, just for the educational side. It's so important that you understand what courts do and what judges do and the human element behind it. There is somebody underneath the robe, and you need to know who that is. This is Craig Bushon, and we'll see you soon.